Hey, how's it going, everybody? Scott Spritzer here with Doug Upstone, and this is marquee matchup for this week's college football. Big one in East Lansing, Michigan lane 4, total 50.5 at Michigan State. First time in 57 years, before I was born even, that these two teams are both ranked in the top 10 when they've met, which is hard to believe when you consider they meet every year. But Michigan laying 4 in most shops at this point. Doug, we've seen this line as high as 4.5. We've seen it as low as 3.5. The total in a couple of books opened as high as 53, currently sitting at 50.5. And I'm going to start by saying this. I've got Michigan State power rated outside of my top 10 and by a decent margin. However you want to say it, it's Michigan week when rankings don't meet a whole lot. And if you remember last year, this Michigan State team was getting 3 touchdowns and won 27-24 outright. Are you a believer where these two teams are ranked right now, both in the top 10 as they head into this week's game? Why or why not?
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I don't believe they both are top 10 teams. I think Michigan definitely is. I think they have earned the right to be there. I think they have proven that it's clearly obvious this is just a different Michigan team. And you know what? And as much grief as Harbaugh got, and justifiably so, I would say, over the last several years, he changed his entire coaching staff, or essentially did. Okay, he basically had a bunch of guys that were like him and his age, and it wasn't working. Okay, and it wasn't going to work. And so he had, the courage and the gumption to go out and get that done. So I applaud him for that. And this new energy that's been brought to this program. I mean, how they play, Scott. I mean, just think of how this team plays of what you've seen the last couple of years. It is night and day. Okay. Now, does that mean they're going to beat Ohio State? Well, we'll see about that. But but for this game, I commend them. Michigan State, I give Mel Tucker, their second-year coach, a lot of credit because he got a buy-in this year. Okay. Last year with the COVID thing, okay, that's fine, but you got to buy in. This team has far exceeded any expectations. Okay. What is the first time in the 114-year history of these two teams playing that both are undefeated at 7-0. So that's another, number that's out there. So it should be a great game. Michigan State, top 20 for sure. Okay. Top 10, not for me anyways.
Yeah. I agree. I don't have him. Like I said, I don't have him in my top 10. I do have Michigan. I'm not ready, and this is just from what they've done since Harbaugh's been in Ann Arbor. I'm not ready to say that Michigan is going to beat Ohio State. I'm not ready to say that they can compete with Georgia or Alabama if they happen to be fortunate enough to get by Ohio State and get to a game against one of those two teams. And the reason is I look at the schedule, and listen, you can only play who's in front of you. We've heard that a million times. They played a very easy schedule. Washington before the season began, and I'm talking like a month to 6 weeks before the season began, I thought Washington would be much better than they have been, as did everybody, basically. They had a bunch of injuries. It was like half the team was missing for the Michigan game in those first few games, and Washington certainly doesn't have a whole lot of confidence, at least the first few games of the season. And Michigan got a very watered-down Washington Husky team, not the team we thought they were going to see before the season began. So I was going back with these two teams, and I said, all right, Washington certainly is not even close to a top 25 team. Let's do some comparative shopping, for lack of a better phrase. And the only team that I have ranked in my top 30 power rating-wise that they've both faced is Nebraska, who's 3-5, but power rated top 30. And a lot of guys who I know, who I respect the power ratings, all have them in the top 30, talking about the Huskers. So about 4 weeks ago or so, Nebraska played at Michigan State. Michigan State was dominated at home in that game. They got outgained by nearly 200 yards. They gave up 440 yards. They had 12 first downs to Nebraska's 26. If it wasn't for Nebraska completely collapsing and not only shooting themselves in the foot, but in both hands, shoulders, head, and everything else, they win that game. I mean, they dominated, but they lose. When they went up against Michigan in Lincoln, Nebraska could have won that game too. They had a chance. They're up by 3 with a few minutes to go. They shot themselves in the foot. However, Michigan at least did damage to Nebraska. They gained 450 yards or so. They had a bunch of first downs. And so I look at that and I'm like, if you want to do just the comparative shopping, and if we want to talk syllogism again, like we did all in college, A plus B equals C, so this and that and whatever, and I'm screwing that up. But anyway, everybody knows who had to study that stuff in college. But the bottom line is listen, I watched Sparty. They were not a top 20 team in that game against Nebraska. You can have clunkers, but I watched them again last week, and I thought in the last game, and I thought, boy, again, they just don't look that great. I know they piled up all these metrics, the yards per play differential and all that kind of stuff. They did that against really bad teams. At the same time, I'm going to go back to what I said when I was tossing it to you, Doug. It's Michigan week. Does that mean anything to you if you do the comparative shopping that I just talked about?
Yeah, from that standpoint, the thing that I guess the most striking thing to me, both teams run the ball very well. Okay, Michigan State does have a better passing offense. Okay, so I think that matters some. But one thing that stands out to me, both teams are in the top 20 in fewest points allowed. Okay, but if you look further, okay, and of course, bottom line, it's how many points you give up. Okay, that's no matter what. That's how the wins and losses and everything are determined. But when you look at the strength of the defenses, Michigan is 12th in total defense. Michigan State is 88th in total defense. Okay, so to me, that is a big difference between the two teams, and looking, how it could play out. Now, does that still matter, as you're asking me? That's a great question. I don't know the exact answer to that one. I actually, to be honest with you, Scott, I do have kind of an answer, because when we release our pick, we're doing this video on Wednesday afternoon. When I do my picks for Thursday, when we have our releases at 6 p.m. at Eastern at Docs, I have a pretty good thought on this game. And so in terms of, I'm not going to give you a pick on the side. I do have one, though, on the total on this one. But, there are some things, to look at. And I agree, sometimes in these types of situations and these rivalry games, it doesn't matter what the numbers say. It's how they play on the day of the game.
I feel sorry for the Mich State program because Tucker's going to be gone sooner than later. Now, he might be there for another year or two. Someone's going to sweep him up. It's just going to be one of those situations where, would you rather, coach at a power team in a power conference, not to take anything away from the Spartans, but a team like LSU or a program like LSU comes calling, not saying that's where he's going to land. I'm just using them as an example. You're probably going to leave East Lansing. It's just the way it is. No disrespect. So I think, that's the unfortunate part about being Michigan State, the so-called little brother of the state of Michigan, if you will. And I hate saying that because I don't want to tick off Michigan State fans, but that's just the way it is. I don't have a side in this one, Doug. It's not going to be part of my premium package this week. I'm going to have at least 7 plays, going to finalize late Wednesday night at 1 or 2 in the morning when most folks are doing the right thing, get some shut-eye. I'll be finalizing. Do have a 7-star going on Saturday. In fact, I got a 6-star on Thursday, a 7-star on Saturday, and a 6-star on Sunday. The 7-star on Saturday, we'll look to make it 5 in a row with our 7-star plays in football going back to late September. So, and again, those are released on Thursday afternoons, as are everybody's over at DocSports.com when it comes to the football weekend. And I'm going to ask you what you got going in just a second, Doug. But what I was going to say is I do like the under as far as a free play opinion. I think that what Michigan is going to see out of Michigan State that they haven't seen so far this year is a team that can actually rush the quarterback. They can actually make life tough on a passing game with their defensive rush. And that's something Michigan really hasn't seen so far this season. At the same time, I think Michigan State doesn't want to get into a shootout, my own personal opinion. They don't want to get into a shootout, and so they got to, try their best to establish that running game. Again, they gave up 450 yards or whatever it was to Nebraska, got outgained by 200 yards. If Nebraska knew how to win football games, they lose that game probably by double digits. So it's a situation where I think they just gotta play it a little bit closer to the vest as far as how the tempo of the game is going to go. I think their defense can make life tough enough on the Michigan passing game to where it'll stay under 50.5. So that's my thoughts on this one. I wanted to ask you what you got going this week. And, oh, by the way, don't forget about NBA at DocSports.com. We're all involved in NBA. Going into Wednesday, I'm sitting on a 5-0 run here. We're looking to cash a get out on Wednesday. Doug, what you got going this week?
Yeah. Before I get to that, I am going to offer a free play, and you know what? I'm going to offer one that you just offered. Okay, I like the under on that also, and for some of the very reasons that you said, just with a little bit different twist. When you when both of these teams in the last, well, in since what 2000, these teams have played 21 games. The Michigan has won 11 of the 21 games, so it's been close in that regard, though, one of the things when both of them have had winning teams, I went back and looked at the numbers, and when both of them had winning records, is that those games tended to be quote unquote Big Ten football. What does that mean?
Sure.
Running the ball, trying to stop the run, being conservative. So that's been the modus operandi when these two teams have met. And then went back and looked further. Now you mentioned the Nebraska game. Both of them have played Nebraska, and they have two other common opponents also. And in those games, and in all four of their Big Ten games, the average total score range for both teams has been between 45 points, a little over 45, and just under 48. So I look at that, and you know what? That tells me I think we're going to get that type of game that you described. I think it's going to be a tight, low-scoring game, and that's so the under to me makes the most sense on that, Scott. So yeah, so that's my selection as well. Now you asked me, okay, what else you got going, Doug? Well, you know what? Coming off a nice winning week again in football, both in college and in pro, 37-25 the last 7 weeks. I think it's a little over $4,000 a profit based on the units. So it's been very good in football. I'm going to try and continue that again. I'm looking at a 7-star play in college football and a 6 in the NFL. So we got some things going. And speaking of football, hey, I got to let everybody know I'm going to be at that Packers Arizona game tomorrow night. So I got that going for me. so
A couple of receivers won't be there, but you'll be there, Doug.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I'll be there. Did I say me? I was thinking. I must have been thinking of my daughter. So that'll be a lot of fun to be able to take that in. And now the playing field is getting a little bit balanced because I said J.J. Watt was just announced that he's going to be out for this game now too.
Right.
So we'll see how that all plays out. But enough about that. So yes, very good football season so far. Going to try and continue it. Haven't matched Scott as far as NBA starts, but long term, going back to February, 71-53 in the NBA. So had a very solid record and try and continue that. And I'm looking up to wrap up a very fine baseball season. I know I got to play by the time this video's out, it'll be gone for game 2. I'm likely to have another one coming up for game 3 or 4. And who knows if there's how many games are going to be beyond that. So yes, I am excited about this weekend. And Scott, how many good games do we have besides this Michigan and Michigan State game?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, when we talk about a spread, we got a lot of games we like to get involved in as bettors, no doubt about it. But as far as just being a fan of football itself, last week was not that great of a week when it came to marquee matchups. We got a lot of fun this week, I think, in college football. So I'm certainly looking forward to it. Last week the 7-star win was San Diego State, outright win as a short underdog. I mean, they almost had to win outright to cover that spread. I got to tell you real quickly, Doug, that last Wednesday at this time, it was pretty much between San Diego State and Pittsburgh over Clemson. Heard about some syndicates getting involved a little bit, heard about some public getting involved, thought that number was going to move up before the folks could jump on Pitt. Decided to go with San Diego State. Again, it was a close call for me, but I had a feeling that line was going to go up on Pitt, and it did. And so I am sitting there, though, of course, late Saturday afternoon before the San Diego State game kicks off, going, great, I just made my top bet, and I told everybody top plays on San Diego State. And the other game that was almost there, that almost made it, if not for an impending line move, I just, is already final, and it's in the win column. And you know what usually happens when that happens? Fortunately, San Diego State came through, got out to a big lead, and held on for the win of the cover, Doug. But anyway, good stuff from you. I know you had a phenomenal run in the NBA last year. I did not have a great year last year. You certainly did, sir. And let's keep it going this week in both NBA, also NHL, baseball, all the good stuff. He's Doug Epstone. I'm Scott Spreitzer. Check out that $60 free account. Almost forgot to mention top of your screen. If you're not yet a member at DocSports.com, click on the link below the video, get yourself set up for the free $60, and you can use those free $60 on any of Doug Epstone's daily picks, any of mine, or anybody else on the roster at DocSports.com. For Doug, I'm Scott. Let's get Michigan State to agree and stay under. WeAreDocSports.com. Let's put them in the win column.